When people think of Alabama, they often picture a traditional Southern economy, but today it's becoming a major hub for manufacturing and aerospace. The state's average income is around $41,000 per year, with unemployment sitting at roughly 4.1%, supported by strong industrial job demand. Manufacturing is the backbone of the economy, especially in automotive production, with companies like Mercedes-Benz or Hyundai operating large facilities across the state. Aerospace is also rapidly growing, particularly in Huntsville, where NASA plays a major role in engineering and defense innovation. Alabama exports about $20.8 billion worth of goods each year, primarily vehicles and aerospace parts. While property crime rates sit at just over 4,000 per 100,000 people, economic growth continues to create more stability. Overall, Alabama is building on its industrial roots to create a more modern, diversified economy.
Okay, so moving into Alaska, the median household income here is roughly $91,260, though the cost of living in remote areas remains extremely high. The unemployment rate here in 2024 was about an average of 4.6%. And crime is actually a huge story here. Alaska has the highest violent crime rate in the US, 724 incidences per 100,000. That's more than double the national average. This is driven primarily by domestic violence, substance abuse, and geographic isolation, which limits law enforcement response times. Now, the jobs here are dominated by government, oil and gas, seafood and fishing, and then finally tourism. The economy basically runs on three things: petroleum, federal spending, and everything else. Exports hit $5.9 billion in 2024, led by fish and marine products at $2.1 billion and zinc and mineral ores at $1.96 billion.
Arizona. Arizona is a fast-growing state driven by migration and population growth, with a diverse economy that includes tourism, technology, construction, and natural resources. The average household income is around $74,000 USD, so close to the national average. The state has a stable employment rate, although growth has slowed slightly in 2025 following the post-pandemic boom. Major job sectors include healthcare, construction, tourism, and government, and the technology and business service sectors are growing. In terms of exports, Arizona is a major copper producer, supplying about 2/3 of the United States' copper, along with agriculture and tourism. Arizona has a moderate crime rate, generally higher in urban areas, as with most states. And fun fact, it is illegal to feed garbage to pigs in the state of Arizona without a permit. I guess if you have a permit, it's okay. Overall, rapid population growth is driving demand for housing, jobs, and infrastructure, and shaping the state's economic future.
Arkansas has a growing mixed economy built on retail, manufacturing, poultry processing, agriculture, healthcare, and logistics. Unemployment is moderate at about 4.4%, and median household income is around $55,000, which ranks low nationally at 47th place. A lot of jobs come from poultry and food processing, but also from factories, hospital, retail, tourism, transportation, and corporate services. Arkansas is especially strong in soybeans, rice, cotton, poultry, aircraft parts, machinery, and other agriculture and industrial exports. Its main trade partners include Mexico and Canada. Crime rates remain a significant concern statewide, as both violent crimes and property crimes are well above the U.S. averages, especially in cities like Little Rock, despite some safer areas. Overall, Arkansas looks economically resilient, with recorded labor force participation and low costs, but face challenges in wages, urban safety, and housing affordability for long-term prosperity.
California. California is the largest state economy in the U.S. It is a $3.37 trillion powerhouse built on tech, entertainment, and agriculture. The median household income is around $100,000 a year, and companies like Apple, Google, and Netflix all call it home. It exports $179 billion in goods annually, led by electronics and agricultural products. The top export destinations are Mexico, Canada, and China. The cost of living is high, and crime is elevated in major cities.
The next state is Colorado. It's located in the western United States, and its capital city is Denver. Colorado has strong income levels, with a median household income of around $89,000 and a per capita income near $70,000. Unemployment is low at roughly 3.5 to 3.8%, with about 3.2 million people employed. Their crime rates are higher than the national average, particularly in both violent and property crime. Colorado's economy is driven by aerospace technology, healthcare, and tourism. Major employers include Denver International Airport, along with companies like Lockheed Martin that lead in aerospace manufacturing. Key exports include food and beverage products, industrial machinery, and aerospace equipment.
On to Connecticut. The average income in Connecticut is $76,050, and the unemployment rate lands at 4%. The crime rate is 1,502 crimes per 100,000 people, and the types of jobs that people fall into are generally in education and administration, construction and extraction, and business and finance. The exports in Connecticut focus on transport equipment machinery, computer and electronic products, electrical equipment, appliances and their components, as well as fabricated metal products.
Named after Thomas West, 3rd Baron of Delaware, Delaware is known as an onshore corporate haven for companies in the US. It has an average income of $85.9 thousand as of January 2024 and an unemployment rate of 4.0% as of 2025. As for crime rate, for every 100,000 people, 361 commit violent crimes and 1,746 commit property crimes. There's 0.5% more violent crimes than a US average, but 0.8% lower for property crimes. For types of jobs, pharmaceuticals, healthcare, banking, and farming take the majority. And many companies flock to Delaware as corporate haven thanks to its appealing corporate laws. More than 90% of all US-based companies that have gone public in 2021 have incorporated themselves in Delaware. Its main exports include pharmaceuticals, chemicals manufacturing, and agriculture.
Now moving into Florida, the median household income here is $77,700, and with that no state income tax, those dollars are actually able to stretch a little further. Now the unemployment rate as of December 2025 here in Florida was 4.3%. Moving into crime, Florida is actually below the national average with a violent crime rate 25.6% lower than the US average, though cities like Jacksonville still deal with elevated numbers. Now the biggest job sectors here are the trade and transportation, healthcare, professional services, and leisure and hospitality. This is all really largely driven by their huge tourism market. For exports, Florida hit a record $72.2 billion in goods, which was led by computers and electronics, aerospace equipment, and finally chemicals.
Georgia has a population of about 11 million, ranking it 8th in the country. The state runs logistics, film production, agriculture, and a fast-growing tech sector with major companies like Coca-Cola, Delta Airlines, and Home Depot. The median household income sits around $78,000, just slightly below the national average. Thanks to Atlanta's role as a transportation and business hub, Georgia has become one of the most economically dynamic states in the Southeast. Unemployment was around 3.4% in 2024, coming in just below the national average. Crime-wise, Georgia ranks around the middle nationally in safety, with violent crime slightly above the US average in some urban areas. The state has seen a massive population growth, adding over 1 million residents in the past decade, driven by job opportunities and lower costs of living. And when it comes to notable figures, Georgia has produced names like Martin Luther King Jr., Jimmy Carter, and Jackie Robinson.
The state of Hawaii is made up of 4 major islands: Oahu, Maui, Kauai, and the Big Island, also known as Hawaii. And there's also a few other smaller islands in the state. The state has a relatively high average income, mostly driven by the tourism-based economy, but this is offset by a very high cost of living, which is one of the highest in the United States. So if you don't mind Vancouver cost of living, but you hate the rain, would highly recommend. The state maintains a stable employment rate with most jobs in tourism, hospitality, and service industries like hotels, restaurants, and travel services. For exports, Hawaii focuses mostly on agriculture such as coffee, macadamia nuts, and tropical fruits, along with tourism itself, which, if you didn't know, is considered a service export. Fun fact, Hawaiian pizza was not invented in Hawaii. It was actually created by a fellow Canadian. But if you can still thank Hawaii for your poke bowls. It has a moderate crime rate, which is typically higher in urban areas like Honolulu, the biggest city in Oahu. And overall, Hawaii's economy is lifestyle driven and highly dependent on global travel demand.
Idaho's economy is largely driven by agriculture, manufacturing, and a growing technology sector. The state's median household income is around $70,000, with unemployment staying relatively low in the recent years. A significant portion of jobs come from farming, food processing, and industrial production, with Idaho being one of the leading producers of potatoes in the United States. Exports are heavily based on agricultural products, including potatoes, dairy, and wheat, which play a major role in the state's economy. In terms of safety, Idaho has a relatively low crime rate compared to the national average, making it one of the safer states to live in. Overall, Idaho maintains a stable and steady economy supported by strong agricultural output and a gradual growth in other industries.
Illinois is home to about 12.7 million people, making it the sixth most populated state in the country. The economy is one of the most diverse in the Midwest, built on finance, manufacturing, and professional services. Chicago alone is a global financial hub, home to the Chicago Mercantile Exchange and major corporations like Boeing and United Airlines. The median household income is around $83,390, which sits above the national average. Unemployment came in at about 4.8% in 2024, which is slightly above the national rate. On safety, Illinois actually ranks 18th safest out of 50 states, with a total crime rate about 10% below the national average. That said, it's worth noting the numbers are heavily skewed by Chicago, while most of the state is considerably quieter. One thing that surprises a lot of people is that nearly 80% of Illinois is farmland, and it's one of the top producers of corn and soybeans in the country. So you've got this interesting mix of a world-class city on one end and serious agricultural output on the other. That's what makes Illinois one of the most economically complex states in the US.
Moving on to Indiana, the average income in Indiana is $58,800. The unemployment rate is still quite low at 3.1%. The crime rate is 1,692 crimes per 100,000 people. And the main types of jobs that people fall into is education and administration, construction and extraction, as well as health diagnosing and treating practitioners. Main exports in Indiana focus around chemicals, transport equipment, machinery, miscellaneous manufactured commodities, computer and electric products.
Iowa is another Midwestern state with a population of around 3.2 million people. It has a median household income of about $72,000 and unemployment rate of just 3%. What Iowa is really known for is agriculture. It's the second largest agricultural exporting state in the entire US, shipping out $17 billion in goods in 2024. Major industries include food processing, machinery manufacturing, and finance. Crime rates are also well below the national average, and for the fun fact, Iowa has way more pigs than people. There are roughly 24 million hogs in the state compared to only 3.2 million residents, making Iowa the #1 pork-producing state in the country.
Kansas has a steady, mixed economy built on agriculture, manufacturing, aerospace, healthcare, and logistics. Unemployment is low at about 3.8%, and median household income is around $75,000, which is moderate for the US, though exact figures vary by source and whether they are inflation adjusted. A lot of jobs come from farming and food processing, but also from factories, hospitals, retail, transportation, and aviation. Kansas is especially strong in wheat, beef, soybeans, machinery, aircraft parts, and other industrial and farm-related exports. Its main trade partners include Mexico and Canada. One thing to watch is that crime rates are still an important concern in parts of the state, even though some recent local trends have improved, such as the decline in homicides and theft. Overall, Kansas looks economically stable, with strong core industries but room to grow in wages and long-term prosperity.
95 of the world's bourbon, the world's largest packing hub, and gold will come to Kentucky. So Kentucky's median income is $63,000, below the national average. But the economy is stacked with powerhouse industry. There are 17 million barrels of bourbon aging here right now. The bourbon industry alone worth over $10 billion. Then there's UPS Worldport, the largest parking source facility on the planet, over 5.2 million square feet. There's 20,000 employees, 416 packages sorted every single hour. That's why Louisville is the 6th busiest cargo airport in the world. And Fort Knox, that's here, 4,500 tons of gold. And in Owensboro, you technically need your husband's permission to buy a hat. Bourbon, logistic, gold, horse, Kentucky as well.
Let's talk about the Pelican State, Louisiana. So Louisiana was established back in 1812, and their population currently sits at 4.6 million people, with their median income at $61,000, ranking them 48th in the country. And their unemployment currently sits at about 4 to 5%. When it comes to exports, they rank the 4th largest exporters in the US with $87 billion worth of goods. However, they're not so lucky when it comes to crime. They've ranked number 1 for murder rate for the past 36 years, with 520 violent crimes per 100,000, with the national average sitting around 380.
The 19th state alphabetically is Maine. It's located in the northeastern United States, part of the New England region. It borders both Canada and the Atlantic Ocean. It's the 9th smallest state by population, with only 1.39 million people. Maine has lower income levels, with a median household income of around $69,500 and a per capita income near $63,000. Unemployment is low at about 3.4%, with a smaller workforce of roughly 675,000 people. Maine has one of the lowest crime rates in the United States, with about 100 violent crimes per 100,000 people. Its economy is driven by industries like manufacturing, forestry, shipbuilding, and agriculture, with key exports including seafood, forestry products, and manufactured goods.
And Maryland, actually one of the wealthiest states in the country, the average household income is $94,000. A huge reason for this is how close it is to DC, the capital. So there's massive federal and defense presence there. So a lot of the Army, a lot of the higher paying jobs in that sector are present in Maryland. And then also biotech and cybersecurity are really big there. Exports are mostly vehicles, computers, and electronics, and unemployment's relatively low, around 3% compared to the rest of the US.
Massachusetts is one of the leading states in US, known as a hub for education, healthcare, and tech innovations. The average income for the state is around $90K, with unemployment rate of 4.7, which is honestly very decent for US. Most of the jobs are located in healthcare, education, biotechnology, finance, and technology overall. Most of the jobs are located around Boston, which is pretty obvious, honestly. So, Massachusetts is also a very important exporter in the world, particularly in medical equipment, pharmaceutical, and advanced technology products, contributing highly to US economy and world economy overall. The crime rate in this state is very low compared to other states, and it's very safe in the suburban and residential areas overall. Also, when you're going to Massachusetts, make sure never scare a pigeon in the public. It's a law. Keep it in mind.
Okay, so next up we got Michigan. Michigan's economy is strongly influenced by its role in the US automotive industry, particularly in cities like Detroit. The state's median household income is approximately $68,000, with unemployment rates varying slightly by the region. A large portion of employment comes from manufacturing, especially automotive production, as well as healthcare and technology sectors. Michigan's exports are dominated by vehicles, auto parts, and other manufactured goods, making it a key contributor to the U.S. industrial output. However, the state does face challenges, particularly with higher crime rates in certain urban areas, though many regions do remain stable and continue to develop economically. Overall, Michigan represents a major industrial hub with ongoing economic growth and diversification.
So, starting off with Minnesota, the average worker here earns $37.58 an hour, which is the highest in the Midwest and well above the national average of $32.66. The unemployment rate closed out 2024 at 3.3, with a labor force participation at 68%, one of the highest in the country. On crime, Minnesota actually hit a multi-decade low in 2024, driven by a significant drop in property crimes. The biggest job sectors are healthcare, manufacturing, education, and construction. Minnesota is sometimes called Medical Alley for its massive medical device industry, home to companies like Medtronic and Boston Scientific. For exports, Minnesota shipped $26.9 billion worth of goods in 2024, led by computers and electronics, industrial machinery, and medical devices.
Mississippi, located in the deep south with a population of about 3 million people. Mississippi actually holds the lowest median household income in the entire country at around $45,000 a year. That said, its unemployment rate is only 3.6%, which is below the national average of 4.3%. The state's biggest industries are healthcare, energy, auto manufacturing, which Toyota and Nissan both have major plants there. In terms of exports, Mississippi ships out nearly $14 billion in goods annually, led by petroleum and coal products. And some fun fact about Mississippi is that nearly 60% of all U.S. agricultural exports travel down the Mississippi River, which runs along the state's entire western border.
Welcome to Montana. Montana relies heavily on natural resources and tourism to support its economy. Industries like farming, ranching, mining, and forestry are important sources of income and have been a part of the state's economy for a very long time. Tourism also plays a big role because people visit national parks, mountains, and outdoor recreational areas throughout the year. So places like Glacier National Park bring in visitors from around the world as well. Overall, Montana's environment is not just part of its identity, but it's also a major economic driver that supports jobs and local businesses as well.
Nebraska is a Midwestern state with a population of just under 2 million people. It's actually one of the better performing states economically, with median household income sits at about $73,000 and unemployment rate is only 2.8%. The economy is heavily driven by agriculture, like beef, corn, and soybeans are the biggest products. And Nebraska ranks as the 5th largest agricultural exporting state in the country. Total goods exports reached $8.2 billion in 2024, and for fun fact, Kool-Aid was actually invented in Hastings, Nebraska in 1927. It blew up during the Great Depression because families could afford it when almost nothing else was available. Hastings still celebrates this with an annual Kool-Aid Days festival every August.
Nevada. Nevada's economy is driven by tourism and entertainment, particularly in Las Vegas, which results in a moderate to average income that fluctuates with tourism performance. The employment rate is closely tied to the hospitality and service jobs, including casinos, hotels, and other entertainment venues. So the economy is highly sensitive to changes in travel and consumer spending. In terms of exports, Nevada actually produces over 70% of gold, all gold mined in the United States, along with other minerals. Much of its economy does come from services, though, rather than physical goods, as shown in Las Vegas. Nevada has a higher crime rate than the national average, but this is mostly concentrated in urban tourist-heavy areas like Las Vegas, where high visitor volume and nightlife activity increase the incident rates. Fun fact, in Las Vegas, it is illegal to pawn your dentures. I don't know who made a mistake to make that rule happen, but overall, Nevada's economy is dynamic but highly dependent on tourism and external demand.
With its famous motto of live free or die, reflecting its Union position and role in American Civil War, New Hampshire, the Granite State, is best known for its gorgeous mountains and natural scenery. Sporting an employment rate of 64.4% with an average income of $99.8 thousand, they score one of the highest annual incomes in the US. And with a crime rate of 110 violent crimes and 918 property crimes per 100,000, New Hampshire sports 69% and 48% lower than the US average, respectively. Nice. Types of jobs in the area include healthcare, education, manufacturing, specifically in aerospace and transportation components, as well as a blooming tourism industry. Their main exports include, as mentioned before, aircraft and transportation materials, the latter of which net more than $7 billion in exports annually.
New Jersey has a population of about 9.3 million, ranking it 11th in the country, but it's the most densely populated state in the US. The economy runs on pharmaceuticals, finance, logistics, and technology, with major companies like Johnson & Johnson, Prudential Financial, and Campbell Soup Company. The median household income is around $96,000, making it one of the highest in the nation. Its proximity to New York City and Philadelphia makes it a critical part of the Northeast Economic Corridor. Unemployment rate was 4.6 in 2024, slightly above the national average, but crime-wise, New Jersey ranks among the safer states, sitting around the top 10 with violent crime significantly below the national average. Despite its smaller size, New Jersey plays a massive role in transportation and commerce, with one of the busiest port systems in the country. And in terms of notable figures, the state has produced icons like Bruce Springsteen, Frank Sinatra, and Shaquille O'Neal.
Next, New York, the Big Apple. The median household income here is around $86,800, though that number varies widely as Manhattan tends to pull it a bit higher. The state unemployment rate is about 4.6, and New York City's private sector just hit an all-time record of over 4.2 million jobs. Crime has been improving overall. Murders and shootings dropped significantly in 2024, though motor vehicle theft rose and felony assaults are at the same level. The dominant job sectors are finance, healthcare, education, tourism, and tech. Finance alone accounts for about 17% of New York's total tax revenue. Exports hit $91.2 billion in goods in 2024, making it the third largest exporting state, manufacturing or exporting manufactured goods and pharmaceuticals.
New Mexico's economy is shaped by a mix of energy production, government activity, and advanced research. The state's median household income is about $64,000 per year, with unemployment sitting at around 4.2%. A large portion of jobs come from energy, government, and scientific research sectors. Oil and gas production, especially from the Permian Basin, drives both employment and exports. In fact, a majority of New Mexico's exports go to Mexico, with key outputs including electronics and technology-related goods. Government also plays a major role, with facilities like the Los Alamos National Laboratory and the Sandia National Laboratories creating high-skilled jobs in both science and defense. However, the state does face challenges, like its violent crime rate hitting about 700 per 100,000 people. Overall, New Mexico stands out for combining natural resources with cutting-edge innovation.
North Carolina is one of the South's economic powerhouses. Median household income sits at $62,891, above the national median. Employment is strong at 96.4% of the workforce. Violent crime is 398 per 100,000, about average for the US. The economy runs on three pillars. Finance, Bank of America, and Truist are both headquartered in Charlotte. Tech, Research Triangle Park near Raleigh-Durham is the largest research park in the country, housing over 300 companies. In healthcare, UNC, Duke, and North Carolina State form one of the strongest research corridors in the US. Top exports are pharmaceuticals at $8.2 billion, industrial machinery, and computer hardware. Fun fact, Research Triangle Park alone employs 65,000 people across 7,000 acres, a city within a state. North Dakota is a small state with a big economic story, driven almost entirely by oil and agriculture. Income is surprisingly high at $68,882 median, well above the national median, thanks to oil industry wages. Employment rate is 97.9%, one of the lowest unemployment rates in the entire country, and violent crime is low at just 281 per 100,000. The economy is anchored by three things: oil extraction from the Bakken Formation, which produces 1.2 million barrels a day. Agriculture, North Dakota is the #1 producer in the US for durum wheat, sunflowers, and flaxseed. In the military, Minot and Grand Forks Air Force bases are among the largest employers. Top exports, over $4 billion in petroleum products, then agricultural commodities and oil-field equipment. Fun fact, the Bakken Formation alone holds 7.4 billion barrels of recoverable oil, a discovery that reshaped the state's entire economy in less than 2 decades.
Ohio has a population of about 11.8 million, ranking it 7th in the country. The state runs on manufacturing, healthcare, and financial services, and is home to major companies like Procter & Gamble, Goodyear, and Nationwide Insurance. The median household income is around $80,520, which lands right at the national average. This makes Ohio a pretty accurate snapshot of the broader US economy. Unemployment sat at 4.3% in 2024, which was just slightly above the national rate. Crime-wise, Ohio ranks 20th safest in the country, with violent crime running about 18% below the national average, and overall crime trending down by over 60% in the last 6 years. The state lost around 300,000 manufacturing jobs over the past 25 years, but it posted its highest job total ever in March 2024, so it's been actively bouncing back. And in terms of people the state has produced, you've got the Wright brothers, Thomas Edison, and of course LeBron James. Innovation and community have always been a part of Ohio's identity.
Sooner rather than later, let's talk about the Sooner State, Oklahoma. So Oklahoma was established back in 1917 with the population currently sitting at 4 million. Their median income is $65,000, ranking them 44th in the country with an unemployment rate at sitting 4%. When it comes to exports, they had $7.7 billion in revenue in 2024, which was record-breaking, with 25% of all aerospace parts coming from the state. However, when it comes to crime, they're not as lucky, with 423 violent crimes per 100,000, ranking them 13th highest in the US.
Now let's do Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania has a lot going on economically. The average income per household is around $67,000. The big industries are healthcare, manufacturing, and education. Philly and Pittsburgh are really what drive the state. Pittsburgh was, back in the day, it was known for its manufacturing of steel, and then from that came a lot of illnesses related to cancer and stuff. So a lot of money went to studying cancer treatment. So that's kind of where that originated. And then Philly, they export a lot of chemicals and machinery and other foods. And then unemployment's pretty normal, sitting around 4%. It's basically the average throughout all of the US.
Welcome to Rhode Island, the ocean state and the birthplace of the Industrial Revolution. This is also the smallest state of the US, with only 1,000 square miles and holds 1.1 million people. The average median income is $84,800, which ranks 19th nationally, and holds an unemployment rate of 4.5%. The top industries driving the economy are healthcare, restaurants, and an advanced manufacturing sector. In 2025, the state exported $4.2 billion in goods, mostly health tech, so like blood and vaccines, and precious metals. On the topic of safety, Rhode Island ranks 4th nationally as the safest state, and they rank 153 in the crime index rate. Oh, and one more thing, it is legal to ride a horse over 5 miles per hour or on a Sunday, so that's one thing to keep in mind.
So this is the state with the lowest unemployment rate and zero income tax. Welcome to
South Dakota.
With just 1.8 unemployment rate, it's the lowest among all US states, and a median income of $69,000, the state purchases above its weight, and you keep 100% of your paycheck. No state income tax. In fact, they wrote this into their constitution of 2024. The economy runs on agriculture, banking, and tourism. And every summer, nearly 3 million people visit the Mount Rushmore. Here's a little fun fact. It's illegal to sleep in a cheese factory here. So the geographic center of the entire US is in the South Dakota, and they have a plaza made entirely of corn. Low crime, low taxes, no income tax. South Dakota might be the US best kept secret.
Welcome to South Carolina, the Palmetto State and home to 5.4 million people. They have a median household income of $72,400, ranking 38th nationally, and an unemployment rate of 4.6%. The state's economy is powered by an impressive aerospace and automotive manufacturing sector. South Carolina is an export powerhouse. They have exported $38.5 billion in the US in 2025 alone, and they are their number one at exporting tires and passenger vehicles. Regarding crime, their violent crime rate sits at 437. That is the 10th highest in the US. And on a lighter note, South Carolina is the 7th most visited state. And yes, it is technically illegal to buy or sell an electric eel. I have the memory of a goldfish.
Tennessee is known for its strength in music industry, logistics, and manufacturing. The average income is lower than in some northern states at around $60,000 per year, with an unemployment rate of 3.5%. So also Tennessee has a diverse job market, with the major employers in manufacturing, transportation and logistics, healthcare and entertainment. Also, the state is known as a strong exporter, especially in automotive goods, chemicals, machinery and agriculture goods. The crime rate in this case is quite high compared to the national average, so I would not recommend you to go and live in the urban areas, but when you're going outside into suburbans and rural regions, you should be all good. Also, make sure that you don't catch a fish with a lasso. Not sure if you ever tried, I'm curious to hear, but if you would do this in Tennessee, you would get into troubles.
Texas. Texas is the second largest state economy, and it has no state income tax, an employment rate near 4%, and over $547 billion in exports, more than any other state. Energy drives the economy, but tech and finance are strong industries as well, especially in Austin and Dallas. They mainly export petroleum products, and exports like electronic products are growing as well. They export mainly to Mexico, Canada, the Netherlands, and China. Crime is moderate and varies a lot by city.
The next state is Utah, located in the western United States in the Mountain West region. Utah has strong income levels with a median household income of around $95,800 and per capita income between $55,000 and $60,000. Unemployment is low at roughly 3 to 3.6%, with about 1.7 million people employed, reflecting a growing and stable labor market. Utah has a lower crime rate than the US average, with about 230 violent crimes per 100,000 people. Its economy is driven by manufacturing, energy and mining, and technology, with key exports including metals and minerals, electronics, machinery, and energy-related products. Around 60% of Utah's population is part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which influences the state's culture and laws. As a result, Utah has stricter alcohol regulations, including state-run liquor stores that are closed on Sundays, and tighter rules around how alcohol is sold and served. For example, non-state establishments cannot sell over 5% ABV, and all drinks must be mixed out of view of the customer.
Moving on to Vermont, the average income is $66,330, American obviously, and the unemployment rate is quite low at 2.7%. The crime rate is 1,847 crimes per 100,000 people, and the main types of jobs that people fall into are in education and administration, business and finance, and construction and extraction. Their main exports are computer and electronic products, but also food and kindred products, miscellaneous manufactured commodities, machinery, and paper as well.
Now Yuki and I are at a different bench, and we're going to talk about Virginia. So Virginia, their median income is about $90,000, which is actually well above most US states. And their unemployment rate is at about 3.6%, which is still pretty low compared to the rest of the states. And in terms of safety, Virginia is actually safer than 55% of states in the US. They have a crime rate of about 200 people per 100,000. And their biggest job sectors are government, defense, healthcare, and tech, which is mostly because of their proximity to Washington, D.C. We had to move locations for the last little fun fact, but Virginia is actually known to have the most data centers in the world, and they hold infrastructures for companies such as Google, Amazon, Microsoft, meaning most of the internet is actually hosted in Virginia.
For the state of Washington, they have a high median household income of approximately $91,000. The employment rate is steady at 96%, with the labor market being dominated by aerospace, technology, and agriculture sectors, specifically by companies like Boeing and Amazon. Its primary exports are transportation equipment as well as agricultural products, but while the state does excel in economic growth, it faces a crime rate that is slightly above the national average in its major urban centers. Okay, then moving south into Oregon, the median household income is approximately $76,000. The employment rate mirrors the national trend at about 95%. The state's economy is also driven by apparel as well as electronic component manufacturing, with Nike and Intel being the top employers. Accordingly, its top exports are semiconductors and electronic parts. Oregon's crime rate is similar to Washington's, with a significant focus on property-related issues in metropolitan areas.
I'm going to talk about Wisconsin while I sit on a bench with my dog. So Wisconsin, their median income is about $77,500, which ranks them 28th in the whole of the US. Their unemployment rate is about 3.3%, which puts them well below the average unemployment rate in the US. And their violent crime rate is about 280 people per 100,000, which puts them on the rather low side for US states. In terms of their work workforce. They're mostly on healthcare, education, manufacturing, and a lot of their industrial hubs are focused on manufacturing and also food processing. A lot of you may know about this, but Wisconsin actually produces a lot of cheese. They produce about a quarter of the whole of US's cheese, which is about 11 pounds per person.
Welcome to Wyoming. Wyoming is heavily focused on energy industries like coal and oil and natural gas. These resources are a major part of the state's economy. Also, they generate a lot of government revenue. Wyoming also has the smallest population of any U.S. state, fun fact, which means there are fewer people contributing to things like local businesses and services. So because of this, the economy depends more on industries like energy, tourism, rather than large cities or urban development. Tourism also helps support the economy, especially with national parks such as Yellowstone.